What up, Gripsters and random YouTubers? Evan here for Grips.com, and as promised, I'm going to be reviewing my win of the Sunday Challenge on 888poker for, I don't know, like 7 Gs or so was approximately the score. So this tournament runs every Saturday. It's part of that challenge series, which I've told you guys about. Really sick value tournament. 15-minute blind levels, $55 buy-in, and a lot of satellite players, a lot of weak players in the mix. I'm just going to go ahead and start the replayer. And pretty much, I'm going to let you see every hand, but if I don't play the hand, I'm going to skip through it. So in this tournament, just to give you guys a heads up, you may not start with a ton of chips, 3K. I guess the same as you start with on like Stars and a lot of the other tournaments. But I like tournaments where you get 5K, 10K chips. I feel like with them skipping the 10-20 level, that you don't have a ton of depth in the beginning, and the tournament plays a little bit fast at the start. But I can promise you that as the tournament gets deeper, as you work your way farther and farther through the field, you get a lot more play because a lot of levels are in there. They don't skip too many levels, and the fact that it's 15-minute levels instead of 10 really helps out. So you see, it goes from 15.30 to 25.50, and the beginning levels are fast. So I was wondering before I made the video if the reason that we have a random hand from another tournament that got in there. Sorry. I was wondering if the reason that I always feel shallow stacked in this tournament in the early stages is because I'm busy playing so many tables that I can't pay attention to what's going on. As you see me make some seemingly tight folds so far, I'm really big on playing position and not playing marginal hands. In early position, like here I had King Jack, I just don't see the need to play those sorts of hands in early position when I have so few chips. So I wasn't sure if the reason that I always felt short stack was because I'm busy multi-tabling and not paying attention to this tourney, but now that I get a look through the replay, I see that the early stages go pretty quick. Now, that being said, there are a lot of weak players in the field, and if you were to one table this tournament, there are definitely a lot of spots in the early going where you can pick up chips from these players. But me, I just play a really solid, tight strategy in the early stages of these tournaments because there's just not that much out there in terms of money to pick up. The blinds are small. There's not a lot to be gained by trying to pick up those blinds. So I don't think there's a ton of value in mixing it up and really getting involved. Now, if, however, you can target specific players, despite the fact that the blinds are small, there can be a lot of value to be gained from playing pots against players who are either A, going to overplay their hands, or B, be really easy to move off a wide variety of hands. So in that case, which is the case in a lot of live tournaments, you want to play a lot of pots while you're deep stacked and while players are going to make major errors. I'm just too busy playing too many tables to really do that because you need a pretty good understanding of how your opponent thinks and how he plays to be able to figure out the best way to exploit them. Anyway, with Ace-King here, probably going to squeeze 400, and once it gets min re-raised, whatever, there's 1,800 in the middle, I have 2,500 behind, I am just going to shovel it in. I got dealt Ace-King. I started the hand with 30 blinds, and this guy who's min re-raising, he could have aces or he could have something completely random, because on 888 you really never know what you're going to get. So I'm all in. I get not one but 2 calls and am up against another Ace-King and a pair of jacks. Interesting to note that SVDR137 flatted the open with the jacks. And it's interesting that Jack will min 3-bet that. Like, I don't know why he would do that, but it's interesting that he did. So I increased my stack by about 50%, which is cool. And now I'm going to get involved a little more just because the blinds are bigger and I don't have much choice. Here, flop a flush draw. I would imagine that I c-bet. With the nut flush draw and an overcard to the board, I'm pretty content to get all the money in. So if Porky Pete check raises, I'm just going to shove. On top of flopping a very strong hand, a hand that has a lot of equity, there is the possibility that I have Porky dominated. If he shows up with King Queen of clubs or King 10 or Queen 10 of clubs or any flush draw for that matter, other than a flush draw with a 4 in it, I have him in extremely bad shape. So I want to give him the opportunity to put in money with those hands, and if he has like top pair, I want to give him the opportunity to put money in with those hands, and if he has nothing, well, I'm happy to take down the pot with ace high. So he goes for the min raise, and based on what I just said, I would guess that I 3-bet the flop and try to get all the money in. But sometimes I surprise myself, as I do here. I guess in the moment I thought that a check min raise rather than a larger check raise may mean a strong hand, and I was cautious about running into 2 pair. Looking back, like, I would like to just see myself get the money in here. And now when he checks, oh, I remember this hand. I can't really think of a strong hand he would check raise the flop and then check the turn. I was paranoid about getting double check raised here, which is just a play that people are really, really rarely going to make. And getting 7-1 on the river, I opt to call, and I remember being really pissed when I saw that he had nothing but mid pair that I didn't blow him off of on the flop and that I didn't blow him off of on the turn. And yeah, poorly played hand by me, but also really funny to see that people are defending hands like 9-6 offsuit from the small blind and then check raising with mid pair. Definitely should not have lost that pot, but I too make mistakes, and that's the great thing about reviewing hand histories, is that moving on, like in the future, if I get into a similar spot, I don't think I'm going to make that same mistake again. And it's funny to see myself, you know, analyze a spot and be like, yeah, clearly this is the best play, and I'm like, I didn't even take it. Wow. Also shows you that you're allowed to make a couple of mistakes during a tournament, and if things go your way, you can still end up winning the thing. You don't have to play a perfect game to win a tournament. The better you play, the less lucky you have to get, and the less the stars have to be aligned. But you know, you can play decent and win. In fact, you can play bad and win, but wouldn't make a habit of it. The most important thing is that as the stakes get bigger, as the blinds go up, that you play better and more mistake-free as you get deeper in the tournament, when everything means a little bit more, and I'll probably fold here. The early stages, you know, it's not a huge difference here nor there. And as you guys will see, I'm not opening a ton of buttons. That is for a couple of reasons. One is that we're all fairly shallow stacked, and I don't really want to be stealing off an 18, 17 big blind stack. The other thing is there are no antes yet in play, so the risk reward isn't as good as it would be if there were antes in play. I have to risk a min raise to pick up a big blind and a small blind, whereas if there were antes in play, you know, I'd be probably looking at more like 2.25, 2.5 big blinds as a return for my successful steal. So at this point, I'm just really guarding the stack. I'm waiting for a spot to pick up a hand or pick up a nice like reshove spot to chip up. But I'm not concerned. I'm not worried about it. And here it looks like I probably picked up my hand. So probably just min raise. No, I went for the shove, and that's fine. Shoving is like unexploitable. I know it's profitable, and I guess with 2 8s, I didn't want to get flat called on this stack. And am I going to open the A7? No. Would I have opened it otherwise? I'm not sure. I don't have the HUD up, so I can't know, but it would really come down to the opponent's stats behind. If I think I'm likely to get flatted by someone who's in position and have to play ace meh out of position, I'm not going to be too interested in the spot. But if I have a lot of tight players behind me and the most likely flatter is someone who's in the blinds, in which case I would have position for the hand, I'm going to be all right with that spot and be more likely to take it. If antes were in play, I'd probably raise that just about every single time. And this ace 10 is probably going to get put in as well. And my reason for shoving, now that I think about it, rather than just min raising these hands, is that this was a Saturday where I had quite a few tables going and there were some bigger stakes events going on. Also, this table was really small on my screen. So since I didn't want to give this tournament that much attention or focus at this stage in the day, I just wanted to keep the decisions as simple as possible. So open shoving in a profitable spot, like I'll probably do here, is much easier to do than min raising and having to think about board texture and the best way to play it post flop. And when the stakes are lower, as they are in the early stages, you can get away with doing this. Once you get really deep in the tournament, though, it's kind of inexcusable to not give a tournament your kind of full undivided attention, because there's just so much to be gained by paying attention when there's a lot of money at stake and a lot of chips in play. What do you guys got? King 5 offsuit. People are shoving with. Take a note. And we'll probably be reshoving this ace jack. Taking it down. 15 big blinds is a really good reshove stack, and ace jack off is a pretty damn good reshoving hand to have as backup if I get called. But the chip up's very nice. Increased my stack like 25-30% there, and that's really what you want to be looking for when trying to find reshove spots, is situations where you can increase your chip stack very significantly with a small risk of having to run a showdown. The more you're gaining, the better, and the less likely you are to get called, therefore the less likely you are to have to show your hand and take your equity, the better. So I'll probably just fold here, and probably not gonna be folding here. I'm still on 17 big blinds, probably just gonna shove it. It's perfectly fine to make it 400, 500, 600, 700 there, with the intention of playing post flop, give the guy the opportunity to peel with a much weaker hand. But as I said, at this stage in the day, this tournament just was not a focal point. It was not a main event, so just kept it simple. Here I opt to raise queen jack in a spot where 10 hands ago I never would have raised it. Can you see what's different between now and 10 hands ago? The difference is that there are now antes in the middle, and as I said, I'm still risking 2 big blinds, but instead of picking up 1.5 blinds, I'm picking up 2.5 blinds because of these antes. Queen jack also has good blockers, decreases the likelihood that my opponents have been dealt jacks, queens, ace queen, or ace jack, which are just a few of the hands that may continue versus this min raise. Fortunately for me, I get shoved on and it's an easy fold. Raising a steal off 17 blinds when antes are in play, I think it's fine. And I like to see myself fold here because the last one didn't work out. I've been caught raise folding, and also ace 2 only has 1 good blocker. Queen jack has 2 good blockers. I also had more hands that I have to get through, and as I'm sure you guys know by now, the more players left to act behind you, the more likely you are to run into a real hand and get played back at. And when we're trying to steal, the last thing we want to do is get played back at. Do you guys shove threes here for 14 blinds? I think it's too much. I hope I folded. Good for me. And fold that 10-7 as well. So we see a free flop here with the Jack 5. Flop mid pair. Leading is an option. Check calling is also an option. I really hope I don't check fold here. If you think about all the different hands that Arth 35 may be limping, especially since we've seen him limp a couple times before, he's going to have a pretty wide range. So he's not going to have hit the queen all that often, and there's a good chance that my Jack is the best hand. So getting 5-1 now, check call again. No, I just fold. I guess I felt that the board was getting too dangerous. And for him to min bet twice, it looked like he was kind of trying to sucker me in and drag me along, but I'm really surprised I would fold getting 5-1. I guess I may also have felt that on a stack of 12 big blinds, every chip is really precious, and I didn't want to commit any more if I may be facing a big river bet that I would have been unprepared to call. Also, I just hate losing a ton of chips when playing from the big blind when I saw the flop for free with a hand that, you know, I had no interest in really committing money to. So I don't know, the odds were good, but I don't know what his range was for betting twice. Anyway, ace king suited, strong hand. We ship it in, and this guy folds, getting almost 2-1. So he's definitely stealing, opening wide, and really probably not understanding pot odds, because I mean almost any hand is good enough to call here. Unless I have him dominated, he's getting the right price. So kind of surprised to see a fold there. He probably didn't want to get exposed for, you know, stealing. And that chip up is huge. I increased my stack 50% with no showdown. That's amazing. Very hard to come by. 10 Jack suited. Could see myself definitely shoving here. What do I have? 10, 13 blinds. This hand plays well when called. I could see myself shoving, but if I had a lot of hands going on, I could see myself folding as well. And I take the shove, and I'm happy I did. Hands like this have really good equity against pairs, ace highs, king highs. Like, you're a lot more likely to get called by ace queen and ace king than you are ace jack or ace 10. Not insanely more likely, but definitely more likely. And when you're called by those hands, you have like 40%, 45%. This hand sucks out really well. Suited connectors are good to shove for that reason, but only when you have enough blinds that you have fold equity. Like if I had 2 blinds or 3 blinds or 4 blinds, I probably wouldn't want to shove jack high because I know that I'm going to get called. But when I have a good chance of making my opponents fold, then having this sort of hand for, you know, backup value, it's my backup plan, is good. Fold equity first priority, pot equity second priority. And here I like to see myself fold again and fold again. And we get moved to a new table. And it looks like we've got a good hand coming up. Not going to call a raise. And so far, I think the play has been pretty straightforward. It's a lot of pre-flop stuff. Here we're going to min raise. And a lot of tournaments are that. And it's interesting because a lot of times in the comments, people will be like, oh, you know, you're just winning coin flips and stuff, and it's so simple. Anyone can win a tournament. Sure, anyone can win a tournament, and it is different than cash games. It's a lot more pre-flop play than cash games, which are a lot more post-flop play. But it's important that you know how to play pre-flop really well and damn near perfect if you want to do well in tournaments. So even if something seems simple, even if something seems basic, it's important to, you know, catch all the details and all the finer elements of it to make sure you're doing it right, because it's easy to say something looks easy in theory And then in practice, people fuck it up constantly. Like, do you shove those pair of threes? The first one or the second one? They're both spots where I think a lot of people probably shove, especially if they're frustrated, especially if they're having a bad day or they just took a bad beat, or that ace 10 just now on 13 blinds from under the gun +1. People may shove that. Maybe a good play. I don't know, but shoving ace king, that's definitely a good play. And we get re-ISO'd by jacks, and well, we're gonna win again. Flip counter, 2 grips, 0 everyone else. And now we finally have a little bit of a stack. I guess now that it's starting to get a little more interesting, I'll just press play and we'll watch the full action. Because at this point we have a bit of a stack. The blinds are starting to get up there. They're a little bit meaningful. You know, there's 750 in the pot every hand. That's 25% of a starting stack. Every pot's worth something. So here, late position open. I have fantastic hand for reshoving. And I have a stack where I'm going to get a lot of fold equity. It's not a hand where I want to 3-bet, where I wanted to 3-bet and get called and have to play a hand out of position. Pocket pairs are notorious for playing poorly, especially out of position. If I was going to 3-bet smaller to try to take a flop, I'd probably want something like king jack suited or ace queen. So I just shove it in. He folds, and I increase my chip stack by about 15%. Happy with that result. And now we're just going to, you know, we'll develop some reads on the opponents and see who's playing tight, who's playing loose, all that good stuff, and maybe we'll just see some ridiculousness as well. I'm kind of hoping that we see some really dumb hands and some really donk plays by my opponents in this tournament, so y'all can see what I was talking about when I made that video on Sunday about how 888 is just like awesome soft site, especially in these challenge tournaments. I'll speed it up a little bit for hands that I'm not involved in. Well, just in the interest of keeping things as smooth running as possible. So here, shove under the gun, and if I was in the big blind, I may call with this hand, but with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players still left to act behind me, I'm too concerned that someone else may have woken up with a hand. And also, you know, is the guy shoving king jack? I don't know. Is he shoving king 10? Queen jack? I don't know. Or am I usually flipping and sometimes in a 60-40 or 25% situation? Just because you got dealt a good hand does not necessarily mean that you need to call an all-in. It's not your job to call all-ins. It's your job to find spots where you're getting a great price and good odds on your money with a hand that you think has good equity given the price, and taking those spots. That top speed is really fast. What do we got? Kings versus jacks. Nothing to see here, folks. I'm going to slow this down because I would imagine I'm probably going to play this. Everything's an option. Could limp raise, could raise, call. Generally probably just make it about 800 here. And I take it down. Ooh-la-dee-da. And we got a cutoff limp fold. And Bill is flatting on a shallow stack. I'm thinking that Bill may be a fishy player. Like the guy has like 10 blinds and he's calling min raises. Not smart. Oh man, I can't wait to see what they have here. Damn. We'll never know. Blinds bump up to 2-4, so I'm sitting on about 25 big blinds. It's cool. Can work with that. Probably go back to playing a little bit on the tighter side. And as you see me fold, ace 5 suited. cool hand, but a lot of players to get through. And what do I do if I get re-raised? What do I do if I get flatted and have to play a pot out of position with ace rag? Like, I'm not trying to do that. I'll wait for stronger holdings, please. And this is whoa, 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 pause, stop, stop, stop. Whew. This is a very important hand, and I didn't want to ruin it for you guys. I remember bursting into laughter during this hand and telling Greggy and Tony how ridiculous this site is. So let's start from the beginning. This guy raises the button. Hatchet Gary maybe has a thing for axes. He's raising the button, so he probably has, you know, top 50% of hand or something. Skip poker stove. I'm gonna go all out on this hand and really break down everything. So we'll give him the top 50%. And we'll give me my hand. Ace 5 off. My equity here, 51%. My pot odds, as you can see in the top left, 4.4 to 1. I need 20% to call. Now, if I change it and give him 30% instead of 50, I still have way good enough price. In fact, I'm pretty sure even if I give him the top 20% hands, I'm still getting the good price. At what point am I not getting a good enough price? Even at 10%. The key reason is that I have an ace. So getting these pot odds and having an ace in my hand, I really like the idea of calling, taking my discount and just taking a flop. This concept that I've learned from Dan Smith, really successful tournament player. Reshoving here is bad because if I get called, I'm in terrible shape. And folding here, although it decreases like variance in some ways, the price I'm getting is just too good for the particular hand I have. Like if I have like 5-7 offsuit, my equity is nowhere near as good. So 5-7 offsuit. See, at 34, if I give him a stronger range, my equity is going to drop to nothing. 31. So even still, my price is okay, but that's why the ace is definitely a call, and the other hands not so much. And I flop, great. Flop really, really good. 2 pair. My plan with this hand, if I flopped an ace, was to play it cautiously, do the whole pot control thing, you know. Check, call a bet, maybe 2, not sure about 3. When I flop 2 pair, my goal is to get the money in. And I check, he bets, and I have 2 options here. I can call or I can fold. Wait, no, I can call or I can raise. Folding would probably be a bad idea. So if I call, what does my hand look like to him? He's probably going to put me on the ace if I call. And when someone puts you on the ace, they usually don't try to bluff you off of it. So I'd imagine if I take the option of calling here, it's going to go bet call on the flop, check check on the turn if he has a worse hand than me. Maybe I bet the river. I bet the river for sure. Maybe he calls, maybe he folds. If he has a better hand than me, which he won't, because I have 2 pair. If he has a good ace though, we'll probably go bet call on the flop, and he'll bet again on the turn. Maybe bet again on the river. So I can kind of get value from his strong hands by going with the check call line. But he's going to kind of know what's up and probably shut down with a lot of his hands. If on the other hand I check raise, he may not put me on the ace, because when I check raise this board, what am I going to do that with? I'll probably slow play my sets And he'd probably expect me to slow play most of my hands. So when I check raise, he may just think I'm full of shit trying to take the pot away. His strong hands, like his good aces, are not going to fold anyway. Going to get the exact same amount of action as I would if I check called. Although I think I'm even more likely to get all the money in, because he may bet smaller on all three streets and not quite be all in by the river. But also, there's the opportunity that he may tool out if he just doesn't believe me. So I think between the two options, check raising is better. Now the question is how much. The bigger I go, the more likely he is to believe me, and the less likely he is to tool out. For example, if I check raise all in while I've given him zero room to tool out, he doesn't even have a raise option anymore. If I check min raise, I give him maximum room to tool out because I made it 1,600 and he can still raise another 5,000. If I make it like 3K, now he can only double my bet and I look pretty pot committed. So the smaller I make it, the less pot committed I look. So I'm hoping that I made it the absolute minimum, which would be 1720. And I just went a little bit more. And Hatchet Gary decides he's all in. And my plan worked to perfection because I'm not folding. And he had not a lot of equity. Let's see what his chances of winning are. I'm going to go with 1%. They don't want to show us. But we can find that out. Because we got poker still. So he has the king queen off. We have ace 5. I think he has like 1% here. King queen, and the board is ace 9 5 rainbow. 2%. Sorry, 2%. So here is a player getting it all in for 2.5 times the starting stack, 17 big blinds with 2% equity. Just dead. And even if I unflop 2 pair, if I decide to take this particular line knowing he was capable of tooling out like this, well, it's a very profitable spot. And yeah, so got him. And I'll finish up this part of the video with an 18K stack. And it really just came down to winning a couple flips, then having that one key hand. I definitely made some mistakes in the early going, and I'm interested to see if I make more mistakes along the way, because I'm definitely going to learn from them. But I believe I played pretty good as the tournament went on, partially because I was more in the zone, and also because I busted some other tourneys, and this one became more of a focal point. So yeah, that's going to wrap up part 1. If you're interested in trying 888, highly recommend playing these challenge tourneys and satellites to these challenge tourneys. And I've put a link in the description of the video, which you can use if you would like to support the project. If you're enjoying these kind of videos, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be bringing out more videos on the regular. And if you subscribe to the channel, you will be notified anytime a new video is released. Had a lot of fun with this part 1. Looking forward to doing the rest of the series. I'll be releasing this Tuesday night. So next part will be coming Thursday. And I will shoot one out on Saturday as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. And now it's tourney time. Take what you learned, go out there, and get stacking.